Welcome to the Law Awareness Weeks at CDC 2024. This webinar is part of Law Awareness Weeks at CDC 2024. It is a collaboration between Pro Bono SG, the 5 Community Development Councils, National University of Singapore, Faculty of Law, Singapore University of Social Sciences School of Law, Singapore Management University School of Law, the Singapore Corporate Counsel Association Pro Bono Chapter, and the Singapore Association of Social Workers, supported by the People's Association. I am Andrew Lee and am your host for this webinar. Today's webinar is Protect Yourself, How to Spot and Avoid Scams. First, some housekeeping matters. Today, we will be using Pigeonhole Live for our Q&A session. You can submit your questions at any point during the webinar and also upvote on any questions that interest you. If you have a smartphone or a tablet with you, just launch your internet browser and enter www.pigeonhole.at into the address bar. Next, key in our event passcode, which is LAWCDC 2408, as shown on the slide. Alternatively, you can click on the link shared in the chat function to launch Pigeonhole Live on your device. If you are viewing this webinar on your desktop or laptop, you should receive an invitation to launch Pigeonhole. Please note that today's discussion is not intended to substitute any form of professional legal advice. If you require specific legal advice, please consult a lawyer. With that, I would like to introduce our panelists for today's webinar, Ms. Victoria Ting, Mr. Wilson Tay, and Mr. Nicholas Aaron Koo. Now, first off, Victoria is an Associate Director with Satya Law LLC, specializing in financial crime, fraud, and investigations. Prior to working at Satya Law, she was a Deputy Public Prosecutor with the Attorney General's Chambers of Singapore, where she handled multiple fraud, money laundering, and bribery prosecutions. She graduated from Cambridge University and holds an LLM from Columbia Law School. Now, the next gentleman we have is Superintendent Wilson Tay. He is the Operations Officer from the Scam Public Education Office, SPEO, of the Singapore Police Force. Public education for a vigilant and discerning public is one of the key pillars in combating scams. SPEO was formed in early 2023 to drive scam public education awareness and expand various outreach efforts on scams. Superintendent Wilson Tay has served more than 24 years in the Singapore Police Force and has various postings, including Project Officer at Training and Capability Development Department, Senior Inspectorate Officer at Inspectorate and Risk Management Department, and several stints in Police Division and Neighborhood Police Center. And last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Nicholas. Nicholas here has over 20 years of diverse experience. Nicholas has been a co-founder and board member in businesses, nonprofits, and government. He has worked with Fortune 500 CEOs, headed up the region for an investor in digital-first education. Nicholas has also led a regional team for Visa, supporting the biggest internet businesses like Tencent, Alibaba, Ctrip, and Sea manage their risks in digital transactions, serving on Visa's Asia-Pacific merchant sales and solutions leadership. He is also a member of the National Crime Prevention Council, a non-profit organization committed to promoting public awareness of and concern about crime and to propagate the concept of self-help in crime prevention. Now, Victoria, Wilson, and Nicholas, thank you for joining us today. Now, to get us all started today, we will be talking about the top 10 scams of 2024. Now, the Singapore Police Force have actually released the Mid-Year Scams and Cybercrime Brief 2024. Now, Wilson, could I trouble you to share with us more about what the police have noted as the most common scams reported by the public?
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. I think I'll just share the top 3 scams that we have in the first half of 2024. It's actually the e-commerce scam, job scam, and also the phishing scam. So it actually ties in very closely with how what is our social norms, what how we communicate, and our consumer behaviors. So where the scammers will actually use some platforms that they will actually communicate or rather use to deceive, perform their deceits. For example, the messaging platforms, social media, or the online shopping platforms. So scammers are actually using more complex ways or methods to trick us into sharing our personal details and also transferring money to them. So in the most recent cases, actually, they no longer be using those methods of actually draining all the money from your bank, but actually more to force you or rather ask you to trick you to transfer money willingly. Yeah. So this is the part that I think we notice about the trend, the current trend for the scams in Singapore.
Now, Wilson, from the police's point of view, which types of scams actually lead to the greatest amounts of loss?
Actually, greatest amount of loss is for the GOIS. We call it the government officials impersonation scams. So actually, you do not see that there's the highest scam is actually the highest amount of losses or in total losses. So let's say you can see it on the screen that everyone can see too. The first top scam is actually the e-commerce scam. It has about 7,000 plus cases, and the losses is only about 8.6 million, right? If you in comparison to GOIS, which is number 6, actually is about 580 cases and it's 67.5 million loss already. So in comparison wise, actually GOIS already covered about more than 10 times of what an e-commerce scam is. So depending on what type of scams are they, what the deceit it is, how is it conducted, on what platform, and who are the victims. So they actually the amount loss doesn't tally in that way. So it differentiates a lot.
I see. Thanks. Thank you, Wilson. Victoria, have you had personal experience about scams? Do you feel that you're increasingly contacted by scammers? Anything personal?
Well, whether I have personal experience with scams, I must confess that yes, I do receive a scam call attempt every couple days or so. But you are right that something I increasingly find is that we are contacted more and more by victims of scams, victims who have, in some cases, lost substantial amounts, seven-figure range. And I would say that there are perhaps 2 reasons for that. The first one is very much as Wilson mentioned. The scammers use increasingly sophisticated and complex methods to deceive people. And as a result, victims find themselves entangled in situations which they might not entirely appreciate or understand. And in many of those situations, the victims rightly then consult a lawyer as to how they should go about unpacking, the legal issues, the jurisdictional issues, the issues of the prospects of recovery as well. The second issue, or rather the second reason I would say, is that kudos to the good people at Police Force and National Crime Prevention Council and Pro Bono SG. I think there's an increasing public awareness about scams. So something encouraging that we've been finding is that victims are more alive to the possibility earlier on that, well, maybe I should stop and ask a lawyer before I go any further, because I hear all these things about how people are getting scammed, and maybe this is what is happening to me. So yes, I think that's a very good sign.
Great. Now, how about Nicholas? From your personal experience and professional experience, could you tell us more about the profile of scam victims in Singapore?
Sure, and thank you, Andrew, and it's great to be with everyone here today. From my years of experience in both in the corporate world, trying to manage risks against fraud and scam, as well as in NCPC, and also as evidence in our crime stats, actually anybody can be a scam victim, right? The profile is used, anyone here. Our proliferation or penetration on the internet has reached almost 100%, and people are getting very comfortable to do all sorts of use of services, whether buy something, look for a job, do their investments, the banking through the internet. And because of that, therefore, become more susceptible to being a victim of scams. So as long as you use the internet, you trade, you transact, you are actually a good profile to be a scam victim.
Now, at this juncture, interestingly, we already have a very interesting question from our audience. Perhaps maybe the panel here can actually comment. Maybe Wilson to start things off. Question here is, why are there so many scams in Singapore? Are we targeted because we are a greedy and gullible lot?
Yeah, I can't say that because of that statement. I think we should be proud of ourselves that we are the first world country, that we are being aimed. Okay, I think to be right, I think because we are a first world country, our economy is good, our people are earning well. So that's why the scammers actually look at the countries that they can scam. I think if you look across the whole region, Singapore is one of the top. If you look across the world, actually US is also being have a lot of scam cases, into Canada too. So
We are the victim of our own success.
I don't know how to say that, but of course, yes. But that's why it's very important for us to see how we can educate the public to make sure that we know what we need to protect ourselves with instead of being scammed.
If I may add as well, I've spoken to regulators or counterparts in other countries, even non-first world countries, and they are also struggling with this issue. The nature of scam that they struggle with may be a bit different from other countries like us. But when I was working in the commercial side, managing risks, one of the things that it dawned on me is that actually we're talking about men on the street versus institutional syndicate, right? So in a way, there's almost no chance. The minute you get onto the men on the street, okay, I'm going to not do this, and then syndicate, they can change. They're very good at manipulating your emotions, your desires, and all of that. So that's the reason why it's very hard for the number to come down. And also, I think Victoria alluded to earlier, because of all the educational efforts, actually the rate of reporting has also gone up.
So, Nicholas, would you say it's not because we're a greedy and gullible lot that everybody can actually be a targeted?
And anybody who uses the internet today can be victim of scam. In fact, maybe I will correct myself, because some of these scams, they don't even go through the internet, they go through phone calls and all of that.
All right, now to help us understand more about the most common types of scams in Singapore, we have designed some scenarios to let our audience understand what actually goes on behind these scams. So our first scenario today is called completing surveys for fast and easy cash. Eve here has received a message over Telegram from Adam, a market researcher working for You Can Trust Us. Adam asks her to complete surveys to receive a small commission of $20 per survey completed. Eve finds that the surveys are really easy to complete and gets excited as she finds that she's discovered an easy way to make some money. After completing about 5 surveys, Eve asks Adam to pay her the $100 promised. Adam now says that she needs to provide her details to his colleague and create an account on their trustworthy platform to receive her commission. Adam shares that the platform has other advanced tasks that could net her greater profit. Now, at this juncture, Wilson, can you give us a hint? What's going on?
Okay, I think this is a very clear-cut job scam. That is, you can see the way that it has been treated, that you can earn fast cash for very low and easy way of doing things. Probably you can just do surveys, and then you can already earn some amount of money. So I think this is a very clear-cut job scam starting point. I think we have a part 2 to it, so we will go into that.
Thank you, Wilson. So yes, part 2. Eve decides to create an account. and notes that she could easily earn hundreds of dollars doing these advanced tasks. However, she notices that she needs to transfer $1,000 to load each of these advanced tasks. Having transferred $5,000 to the account stated on the trustworthy platform and earned $1,000, Eve wants to withdraw her earnings. However, Eve finds that she is unable to do so. Trustworthy states that the account withdrawal function is only available for members who upgrade their membership by topping up their account to a value of at least $10,000. At this point, Eve is troubled and is wondering what's going on. Now, Victoria, let's say you're the friend of Eve. What do you think Eve should actually be doing right now?
Apart from not trusting a platform that purports to be trustworthy, look, I would tell Eve, number one, please do not transfer the balance of that $10,000. Something which Nicholas said earlier, which I think rings very true, is that the scammers are very adept at emotional manipulation. And part of their modus operandi is to prey on what we know to be the sunk cost fallacy. So when you have invested in something, you've committed time and effort and money, you are more likely to continue doing so in order to reap the benefits of what you intended to initially, right? And that's where people end up throwing good money after bad. The second thing I would advise Eve to do is immediately lodge a police report with the preservation of all of the evidence, which in this case would be screenshots of the websites, records of the URL, correspondence with Mr. Adam, and give the police as much as you can in the hopes that they will immediately freeze the target bank account that you had transferred your monies to. And with any luck, the money might still be there. In terms of whether she will be able to recover that $5,000 that she transferred, which I assume is a follow-up question. At the end of the day, I think it really depends on how fortunate or unfortunate you are. Something that we almost routinely see in scam cases is that once the money is transferred to a specific bank account, it's very quickly thereafter transferred out of that bank account with a few skips and hops. It usually disappears from Singapore. It can also be dissipated into cryptocurrency and then into various other wallets thereafter. And I think part of that is a response to the scammers' awareness that in Singapore, actually bank accounts get frozen quite quickly. And therefore, if they want to have a hope of materializing, their scam proceeds, they need to move it fast. So yeah, I mean, freeze your bank account insofar as you have given the details, report to the police, and please don't transfer that $5,000.
So, Victoria, related to what you mentioned about bank accounts, we do have a question here, which is regarding what recourse does an individual have vis-a-vis a bank if their bank account has actually been hacked, someone got the details, or they've transferred the money out? What can they actually do vis-a-vis their own bank?
Yes. So in terms of recourse, if you talk about your bank account being hacked, let's say it's a phishing scam. Phishing refers to the situation where, for instance, you give up your personal details inadvertently, and that enables a scammer to have access to your bank account details. It is not a straightforward situation, but the government has proposed this thing called the Shared Responsibility Framework, which addresses not just the individual user, but also the banks and the telcos. And under this Shared Responsibility Framework, each of the stakeholders has responsibilities. So the bank has responsibilities such as to give you real-time notifications about outgoing transactions, to give you notifications when new digital tokens are being activated, and to impose there's a cooling off period before such tokens become operative. Telcos also have certain responsibilities, such as not to allow unauthorized senders to use that SMS function, which gives you the name of the sender directly to your phone, even if they're not saved in your contact book. And then, of course, at the end of the day, the individual has responsibilities to be vigilant in all circumstances, practice good cyber hygiene, etc. So in terms of what recourse you have, it really depends on whether the banks and the telcos have discharged their responsibilities. And if they have, which is the case in most situations because most of their processes have these obligations built in, then unfortunately it does fall to the user. There are certain avenues which the user can explore. So number one, they can consider approaching FIDREC, FIDREC, to help them negotiate with banks. But this is again on case-by-case basis. As to recourse against the eventual scammer, that's more thorny. Of course, if you know who the scammer is, then by all means, you should be pursuing recourse. I think, unfortunately, all of us on the panel know that it's a once in a blue moon situation that you find out the true identity of the scammer. Most of the time, in any case, it be a syndicate, right? So that is the reality.
So related to what Victoria earlier mentioned about making a police report, Wilson, can you actually share with us what actually happens when an individual actually makes a report of being scammed?
Okay. I think depending on the facts of the case, investigation will actually process in a very different fronts. So for example, if the victim has already transferred money to the bank account provided by the scammers, the focus of the police is actually to make sure that we find out about bank account details immediately if we can, to freeze that account so we can stop the money from being transferred out as soon as possible. But of course, the time to take for scam-related cases depends on several factors. So for example, maybe the type of scam, how difficult the scam is, maybe there's multiple levels. And also, I think just now shared by Victoria is also how they cover their tracks by transferring the money very fast from Singapore all the way out to the overseas and probably to different countries. So there are also different factors that be involved. So of course, in many cases, other than going through overseas, through many bank accounts, this might be already done before a police report that's made. So when it's transferred really out of Singapore, I think it's a bit difficult for us to look at it, but we will try our best to make sure that happens. So that's why our main public education to the public is definitely, if you can if you really fall prey to scam, the first thing to do, mentioned also, that quickly do the kill switch, which is to your bank through official bank apps or official helpline numbers. Immediately go to the option, the scam option, and activate the kill switch. Then this way, you can quickly stop all your bank accounts first. Then you quickly report to the police.
So on a related note, so Nicholas, Victoria and Wilson have both shared about how it's actually really difficult to recover money once it has gone to scammers. So could you help us identify some signs that Eve should have actually or could have spotted to actually avoid being scammed in this instance?
Yeah, looking at the case at face value, at least, maybe perhaps not only when the case happens, there are many things that you can spot, but perhaps the top three things that jump out at me. One thing is that this was an unsolicited contact, right? So normally you get an anonymous contact from Telegram. You think about, like, did you contact the person who contacted you? And this is something that is something that's a red flag to me as a sign. Second thing is kind of like a common, almost common logic, in the sense that that in this case, the victim had to pay before getting paid. So that's normally a big red flag for a scam. And perhaps the last one, I mean, would be the credibility of the company that contacted the victim. In this case, even though it says you can trust us, it's not a well-known company, right? So one thing is to go online and check the reputation, credibility of these companies. But I might also add that even if it's a big company, a big survey, well-known company that has good reputation, sometimes you have to make sure that you are in contact with the right employee or official contact from the company, not just somebody who's pretending to be from this company.
So at this juncture, Wilson, what's your advice you have on job scams? What should people do to reduce the chances of being approached for these job scams?
Definitely. I think under the Act campaign, we have 3 factors: add, check, and tell. I'll just share on 2 main things, which is on add and check. So on the screen that probably everybody will be able to see now, on Act wise, I actually have shared on the private settings. You have to add private settings to your messaging apps so that you will avoid being added into random chat groups. That is something that is very common for job scams and even investment scams. The second one is to install Scam Shield. Scam Shield to protect yourselves against scam calls and scam SMSs. So let's say in the first place, this offer might not even come in if it has been identified as a blacklist number. The third one is security features. I think security features is very important that you hold for your own transaction limits for your banking account. 2FA for bank account now is common already. I think the last one is on e-wallet. I think now everybody now has PayNow, PayLah, right? So that's important too for you to set your features in that. So the second point is on check. So it's related to what Nicholas has covered just now. Check the authenticity of the job offer directly with the company. So also the second point, definitely you have to check with someone you trust about the offer. So maybe ask a second person, second opinion. Are you sure this job is real or not? I think the last one we want to promote very strongly is on check with Scam Shield helpline at this number 1799. I repeat again, 1799. So if you are unsure about anything about scams, you can call this number to check.
Wow. Okay, that's actually new to me. I never knew there was a hotline 1799. That's really easy to remember. Now, here's an interesting question from a member of our audience. He takes the position, or he or she takes the position that there must be a way for banks to match the intelligence and advancement of scammers. For example, if a transfer is being made overseas, couldn't there be a way to actually delay the transfer out? I put this across to the panel. Victoria, you got anything to share, or Wilson?
Well, to the first question, at least, about whether there is a way for banks to match the intelligence and advancement of scammers, I do think, in defense of banks, that they do try to. Unfortunately, the one hindrance which banks have, which scammers unfortunately do not, is that they are bound by laws, things like banking secrecy, things like customer secrecy, whereas scammers by default are lawless. So I think to a certain extent that does slow down their ability to implement processes or perhaps use all of the information at their disposal to counteract against scams. The second thing I would say is that obviously the human greed knows no limits, and when you are determined to scam someone of money, you will find a way. Having said that, you know, the MAS is also doing some very interesting things right now as regards data sharing among relevant agencies. So it's just launched this thing called the Cosmic platform, to which most of, or rather, I think the top 5 or 6 major banks in Singapore are party. And what that does is enable banks to share certain information specifically for trade-based laundering. But, you know, we can always have separate discussions in the context of scams.
How about like Nicholas? You've got experience with digital banking transactions.
Yes, I've worked with many banks, and there's been a lot of advancements, including use of AI, machine learning in terms of protecting consumers. And I think for every maybe successful fraud or scam that goes through, actually thousands, if not millions of other transactions actually have been blocked. End of the day, I would say that why these exceptional cases or still go scam cases still go through is also unfortunately down to a lot of human factors. Simple example, I can walk into maybe a company or an office, and I can see people like, you have like the strongest passwords, but they write the password and they paste it on the screen of the monitor, right, and stuff like that. So it's stuff like this. Your most advanced technology may find it quite difficult to prevent.
Wilson,
so
any
probably-
position from the police?
Yes, okay. So our anti-scam center actually work closely with the various major banks in Singapore. So we have trying our best to share the information that we can with the banks so that they can improve their systems and detections and stuff. So I can only say that the banks have improved a lot, definitely under the wings of MAS, that they put in a lot of fraud, anti-fraud measures, including all the AI and whichever that's related. Once they have already tracked a certain account that has been suspiciously moving a lot of funds in and out from that account, they will try to see how we can stop the transfer for the moment, or at least do a check with the police. Or they also even do proactive actions. Let's say that is a scam account. They will actually call some victims when their money has been transferred. Are you sure you're going to transfer through, to make a second layer check? So to assure the public that there's a lot of work done in the background, like what Nicholas said, maybe one scam amount goes through, actually there's millions behind that is being blocked. I think I also want to defend everybody out there that we have also shared a lot of articles that there's a lot of money we try to block and prevent and being scammed or going out of Singapore. Yeah.
Thanks, Wilson. I think to reassure the public, our banks, our police force, everyone involved in crime prevention here are really trying their utmost best to stop the loss of our monies. Moving on to our second scenario. Second scenario is called love and investment. Now, Clyde here has been experimenting with a new dating app, Coffee, Tea, or Me. He finds it fun and has expanded his social circle with this app. He meets Bonnie on the app and finds her most charming. She's even an experienced cryptocurrency investor and makes thousands of dollars every month through her investments in kitty coin. Bonnie doesn't shy from showing Clyde her earnings on her trading app. Bonnie tells Clyde that he can profit if he simply follows her investment strategy. Just $1,000 is all she needs to prove herself. Now, Clyde here thinks, well, the sum is small, and transfers $1,000 to the bank account Bonnie provides. Now, within 2 hours, he gets a surprise notice from his bank that $200 has been credited from, I kid you not. Clyde can't help but feel he's met his soulmate, someone with a sense of humor and investment acumen. So again, Wilson, could you just hint to us what's going on?
Yeah, this is a very clear-cut love plus investment scam. I think it started with them knowing each other, Clyde knowing Bonnie, and then when they have built the trust already, that's where the investment scam comes into the picture. So the investment scam is, I think in this type of scam, we have a term that we use it. We call it pig butchering. So once you pass in or put in an amount of money, maybe 1,000, you see the returns within hours. That's where the person will start to have the greed and put in more money. So when that happens, something else will happen, like they will cheat you more funds ahead down the road. Yeah.
So moving on with the scenario, okay, Clyde decides to invest a further $10,000 with Bonnie. After 2 days, Bonnie sends him a screenshot, which shows his trading account is now valued at $30,000. Kitty Coin has been on a meteoric rise. Clyde is convinced. He transfers his life savings of $200,000 into his trading account. Bonnie says she will be traveling, but will continue to invest on his behalf. Now, after a week, he doesn't receive any messages from Bonnie. Clyde is worried that some ill fate has befallen his soulmate. Now, Victoria, could one of the reasons that Clyde got into this scam was because he didn't understand what cryptocurrency really was. He thought that it was something that he could really make profits of. Could you help our audience understand, what exactly is this cryptocurrency and whether cryptocurrency investments in general is actually suitable for the public?
That's a good question. I think, well, in simple terms, cryptocurrency is a digital form of money. That's the easiest way to think of it. But unlike traditional money, which is issued by a bank or a government, cryptocurrency is the ledger for cryptocurrency is kept across various nodes or computers, which are distributed across what's known as the blockchain, right? And essentially, transactions happen on a peer-to-peer basis without an intermediary. I'm generalizing a bit here. It does depend on the specific kind of token. Your second question was about whether cryptocurrency investments were suitable for the general public. I think for present purposes, and of course, it is hard to generalize, what we must always be mindful of is that cryptocurrency, by their very nature, they are very speculative. They are usually quite volatile, as in the case of Kitty Coin, although whether that exists or not is a separate question. And while, of course, certain investors have made huge amounts of money, other investors, including seasoned ones, have also lost amounts of money. As with most emerging technology, the level of governmental attention and regulation can also differ quite greatly depending on the token or scheme that we're talking about. I think what Clyde should have borne in mind is more that he didn't really understand crypto. And unfortunately, I think scammers also know that a lot of people like Clyde don't entirely understand crypto. But they've heard the buzzword, right? They've heard the hype around it. They've heard of someone's friend's friend who's made a bundle of money from it. And I think scammers are very mindful that if they use that hype, use that desire to jump on the bandwagon and exploit that, what the millennials or Gen Zs call FOMO, F-O-M-O, fear of missing out, then scammers are more easily able to get victims to invest in something that they don't understand. So I would say that every time someone comes to you with a sure win proposition like Kitty did, or Bonnie did, then definitely do approach with caution. There's unfortunately no such straightforward sure win investment.
So, Nicholas, could you actually talk us through this scenario and highlight to us the signs that we should be looking out for?
Actually, I thought my fellow panelists have covered this scenario quite well. Right? Actually, pig butchering and right and crypto investments. Perhaps if I can talk a bit more broadly about the investment scams. Right, I think it was last year more than $200 million have been lost in investment scams, and some of the common signs of investment scams or phony investments would be promise of very high risk with very high returns with no risk, or very low risk, right? And this is a very way to attract and lure investors or this potential victims. In fact, it can be seen that the greater the promised returns, the higher the risk should be, right? And it's important for, I think Victoria mentioned that important for one to understand actually what you're actually investing in. If you are investing in crypto, you need to understand the fundamentals of what you're actually investing in. The other thing is, I thought in this case, and also quite commonly, is that the investment comes from a party that has a track record that cannot be verified, right? So MAS actually provides a list of registered financial institutions, representatives, and even alerts on investors and all that. So oftentimes in these scams, this investment opportunities are provided by parties that you cannot actually verify online or with MAS, and so that's one case. And perhaps one more common sign of investment scam or phony investments would, which is not in the case of evident in this case, but it's the involvement of pressure tactics, right? Scammer often use, there's a time limited offer. There's if you do this now in the next 2 hours, and there are rebates and all this coming through and all that. So those pressure, kind of like causes you to not have a chance to pause and think before you make those decisions.
I see. So, Wilson, from your personal experience, what other variations of investment scams have you come across? Any memorable stories that you can share?
Okay. There are actually two more common variants of investment scams. The first one is actually online advertisements. I think sometimes you will come across investment opportunities on through your internet search, through social medias, through online articles, and or any sponsored posts that you can see on Facebook, for example. This article actually will have attention-grabbing information or headlines like arrest of somebody, a release of secret information. So you should actually buy this amount, or some celebrities or political figures say that you should buy this investment tomorrow. If not, you will lose the chance. So this is the first type, which is the online advertisement. The second one is actually the messaging chat groups. So I shared a bit just now too. So this is the part where victims will be added into chat groups, providing investments to say that there's a lucrative investment opportunity for you. Then there'll be a lot of people inside, and you'll be promoted to say that if you invest A amount, you'll get X amount of money, maybe $100, $1,000 back, for example. Then, so in order to deceive the victims into believing that this opportunity is actually real, the other members of the chat group, which actually are scammers, you are the only potential victim there. Then they will just say that, oh, how much money they have earned, show screenshots of what they have earned so far. Thank you very much and stuff. So I think one very interesting thing that I can share is I myself have also been added to quite a few chat groups before I joined Scam Public Education Office, because I also want to know what they are functioning about, because I'm a policeman anyway. So so the page will actually, one of the group is very active. So the page actually will spam by a lot of things that I mentioned just now, all the screenshots, and say that can I ask how to invest and stuff. So one day I got tired of all the spamming. That, well, how come they like to role act with each other? I just there will always be a certain window that is open for users, potential victims, say, how can I invest? I take that window or opportunity and say that, don't bluff lah, scammers, stop doing this kind of thing. Within 1 minute, I'm being kicked out of the chat group.
Whoa.
Yeah.
All right. So I think this is related to a question from a member of our public. They say that they have likewise been receiving spam messages from TikTok, social media platforms to become friends. And well, in his case, profile is usually an attractive female. What are the authorities actually doing to try and protect youth and adults from these kind of unsolicited invites, trying to contact you, trying to befriend you, and obviously using a guise of an attractive individual?
I think creating accounts by anyone, by not even the scammers, by anyone is possible. So it's actually quite difficult for us to stop every single one of them. But of course, when there has been identified as a scammer, for example, on Facebook and stuff, the police will actually find out that details of the ID, and then we submit to Facebook, for example, then request for them to take it down, to remove the page, to remove this user. But of course, there have been challenges because different organizations and corporations have their own priorities. They might not be so forefront in doing things, but we have been trying our best to make sure that we can remove all these scammers per se, all these profiles from the internet.
I would also add that the difficulty is that it's very much a cat and mouse game, right? You're trying to outrun the scammers, whereas it's very common, or it is definitely possible nowadays, to automate the creation of new accounts. So even if one account is taken down because it's been reported and the police come to find out about it, 20, 25 accounts will spring up overnight in its place. So that really does compound the difficulty of eradicating scams. I would also like to say that I don't think it's always an attractive female. Sometimes it could be an attractive male. So just because you are contacted by a striker doesn't mean that you can be complacent.
So, Victoria, does it actually make any difference if Clyde, for example, used a credit card instead of a bank transfer? Are chances of recovery any better if you use a credit card?
On balance, I would say that yes, rather than a bank transfer, your chances of recovery are slightly better. Although, of course, this is not across the board and it's not fail-safe. And the reason why I say that is that some credit card, or most credit card companies, do allow for this thing called chargeback protection. It allows you a window of time. If you go and check the T's and C's of your credit card now, you might be able to find the clause where basically you have a window to to dispute certain incorrect or fraudulent transactions. It also does help that most credit cards run on global platforms like Visa and MasterCard, which also have their own processes or terms and conditions as regards when objections can be lodged. But that's not to say that you can be complacent, because if they do obtain your credit card details, that can still be very problematic if you're not actively monitoring your credit card statements, right? A few years ago, or perhaps slightly more than a few years ago, I think credit card skimming was also a big issue that thankfully, I'm sure, doubtless thanks to the good work of the SPF, that's come down a bit somewhat. No?
So I think
Or it's been overtaken, is
yeah,
it?
overtaken by scams of other types. So, yeah.
Oh dear.
So talking about scams of other types, Wilson, so a member of our audience has asked, how common or prevalent is things like Facebook scams, social media platform scams? For example, where they ask you to sign up for a course, a webinar, and then they ask you for personal details when you sign up. Have the police noticed that? Is it really common or decreasing now, or what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, I think if you can see the first half of the mid-year crime brief, phishing scam actually is one of those that is top 3. So I think the very important is that you must be very sure what you are giving your personal details or banking details to online, or to the course that you want to sign on for, or whichever products that you want to pick it up. So you must really check with the official company or the banks that are providing this service or this product. Then you consider whether you want to provide the information. I think, of course, we have always been trying to educate the public to make sure that you use official channels, to make sure that you protect your money in the way that, let's say you're going to buy a certain something, make sure that it's an in-app transaction payment methods, not via something that you transfer directly to the person or give out your information directly to the other party, or use like secure payment modes like Visa and then a MasterCard, for example.
So closing out this area on investment scams, Wilson, what's the message or advice you have to our audience here regarding investment scams?
Yes, thank you very much. Back to me again on the key things that I want to share or investment scams. 2 key points again, I'm going to share about add and check. The first one, same thing, I say again and again, set your privacy settings to your messaging apps so that you will not be added into random chat groups. That's very important. So you cut down at least 50% of the time, you can choose which chat group you want to join. Okay, the second one is security features. I mentioned again, transaction limits, 2FA for your bank and e-wallets. The last one is something that for investment especially, I want everybody to go to your bank application or through the bank to make sure that you activate money lock. So I know Singaporeans have a lot of cash, right? Probably you're lying other than investments. Make sure that you have your cash, activate the money lock. So how this works, actually, let's say you have a certain amount, let's say we say small, $100, your daily use is $10. So on the $90, you don't really use it. So you can actually activate the money lock so that $90 will never be digitally transferred out from your bank. So how you're going to unlock this, you have to do it in person, either at the bank front or at the ATM machine. So ATM itself. So it actually stops from you being scammed for the remaining sum of money that you have. Okay, that's for the add portion. For the check portion, I think related to what Nicholas has shared just now, make sure you always check what you invest. Dealing with unregulated company or agent means that you give up protection under the law. So if the check that if the entities that you are dealing with are regulated using the following resources on MES website, there's 3 in total. The first one is on Financial Institutions Directory. The second one is Register of Representatives. The third one is investor alert list. So the third one, what you know, let's say this investment company is on the alert list. Once you refer to it, you do a search, it will tell you that please don't invest in this company. You're putting yourself at risk. I think the last one, again, I want to promote the 4-digit number. If unsure of anything, please check with Scam Shield Hotline at 1799.
All right, thank you very much, Wilson. So again, everyone remember 4 digits, 1799. Now, moving on to our third scenario. Third scenario is titled, Am I Wanted by Interpol? Now, May has just arrived in Singapore on a student's pass. A day after she arrives, she receives a call from Miss June, who claims to be from Interpol. Miss June says that May is involved in money laundering activities and must cooperate. Otherwise, she will face arrest and deportation to China. Now, May dismisses this as she knows she isn't involved in money laundering. So, Wilson, at this stage, all good for May?
Okay, I think the situation is to show that is possibility of a government official impersonation scams, and then that she received a call from out of nowhere from saying that she will be deported if they don't if she's involved in money laundering, and she'll be deported somehow. I think this situation quite clear cut. It may be government impersonation scams.
Now, moving on. Shortly after, she receives a video call from Mr. Julius, an officer from the People's Police. Now, Mr. Julius here was in a police uniform and speaks to her in Mandarin, explaining that his Interpol colleague, Ms. June, had contacted May, but she had not responded to her. She is now wanted for obstruction of justice. Mr. Julius then shows her the warrant of arrest. May feels terrified. Now, the next day, a courier actually appears at her doorstep and passes her some documentation. Before she has time to call anyone, Mr. Julius video calls her. Mr. Julius now instructs her not to talk to anyone, including her family, about the ongoing case, as it could lead to a more severe sentence. Now, May obeys Mr. Julius's instructions to make payments to the police bank account to assist with their investigations. Now, Nicholas, how could May have actually responded in this scenario?
Well, for me, this is an interesting case study because in my past career, I have worked with Interpol on a number of cases and enforcements. And one thing I learned, actually, Interpol does not actually have enforcement powers locally. They usually work with local police in any jurisdiction. And perhaps their powers have been romanticized by Hollywood or by Hong Kong movies, but actually they don't. And it's the same for overseas police. They will have to work with local law enforcement. That's the first thing. I think in this case, May should really have not panic, right? Pause and think. Especially in this case, she knows that she's not been involved in money laundering, and she can also just call and just check with her friends, her family. Practically, if I was May, I would have maybe asked for a number, official number to call back, and then I would verify the number online with official channels or 1799 to check whether this number is actually a legitimate, whether I'm getting this call from a legitimate source. And definitely don't wire money on a phone call from a stranger. And Wilson can verify my last point is that in Singapore, no police or government official will call you and ask you to transfer money, right? For a fine. And there'll always be official documents, official channels, and for you to make payments for summons and all of that.
May I just add, because this case is actually about China, right? They can, or rather any countries, you can actually call your embassy to make sure that to make inquiries whether there's such a case. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's new. Now, this is actually some feedback from members of the public here. It says here that they have actually received WhatsApp messages appearing where the profile pic is actually that of our local police. And they're just sharing that, you know, the police, this individual who claims to be the police, then asked to provide personal information to this alleged police officer. So in such cases, they are reported to the police. What's the police's response, and how do people usually actually finally realize they've actually been scammed? What generally happens?
Okay, similar to how we deal with different cases, if these are reported from probably WhatsApp, this profile, then this will be actually forwarded to Meta to say that this is profile, then they can ask them to block this account and user. Of course, upfront, when any public receive this kind of scam messages or scam profile that request for information, you should immediately report to WhatsApp. That means there's a function where you can just click and say that report this ID, report this user, and then this will be blocked in your profile, in your WhatsApp already. I think for the cases, usually if how do people find out whether they have been scammed, right? It will either be know that they have been scammed when the scammers become uncontactable. So let's say in this situation, then the scammers will disappear after getting your money. So you want to contact how's my case, or there will be response. The second way is, of course, they verify with the banks or authorities directly. Like let's say in the case of the May, right? Yeah. So when she happens to know and then somebody advise her, like for me, I'll advise her to call the embassy. Embassy will tell, no, I do not have such an alert that I'm looking for you. Then that's where she will realize that she has been scammed. The third one, of course, if she's reminded by loved ones, families, or friends that these are the common situations that police force has been sharing. Why have we falling prey to these scams? So these are the ways that they will realize that they're scam. I think on the part that whether we can convince everybody that they have been scammed for the cases they are. Of course, we do have cases where the victims do not think that the real police will call. So for example, let's say we have already started investigation in the case, then the IO will make a call and say that, yeah, I'm XYZ police officer, I'm investigating your case. He will just knock off the phone and say that, no, I do not believe you, because, that situation actually do not pick up any calls, do not report to authorities, right? That's one case. So in this kind of situation where we really know that you have been scammed, we have no choice. We will actually get our uniform officers with our investigator to go down and knock on your door. At least uniform officer will show that you have arms, you have uniform, then they were then willing to open the door. Yeah, this also happens quite a few cases often at banks, where the banks will have to stop. They already know this is a transfer of amount to overseas as a love scam. They would stop this victim and say that, no, you shouldn't do that. Then the victims don't believe, and then the next moment they have to call police to come down. Yeah, so these are the cases that we see.
So Wilson, just checking. So does our police force actually contact individuals over WhatsApp?
No, we don't. So now, okay, so very clear cut now, when we call you, it will be from a certain number that is related to the police. So for example, let's say we call it from MPC, that will be ending with a certain number, 999 for example, or we are calling from maybe our HQ level. When we call you, we will ask you to come down to our police station and meet in person for a case that you are involved with. We will not ask you through the phone to do XYZ, maybe to transfer money that we have shared and things like that. So we will not do that.
So Victoria, let's say May is your friend. What would you actually advise May to do?
Well, I think the difficulty in this case, has May already transferred any money?
She has listened to Julius
Yes.
here. And
So
transferred to a foreign
unfortunately,
account.
the problem is that the money has gone, and not only has it gone to a different account, it's gone to an overseas account. So again, I think, if she does report this to the bank and to the police in time, there might be some chance of stopping the transfer before it's effected, especially if it's an overseas transfer. Sometimes there might be a delay period during which there might be some recourse. Insofar as May has given her account details, again, she should be activating the kill switch, and then also giving that information to the police. One thing I would say is that, well, in my past job, before I joined the law firm I'm at, I was a prosecutor, and it always did, or rather, when these scam kind of hypotheticals come up, the one thing I want to say is that if the police wanted your personal details, they could get it without asking you. Just in terms of, the national registries, and all your information really is with the government, right? I mean, you can open your own SingPass and see how much information is there. So in that sense, if they ask you for, your bank account number, they don't need to ask you. They can go to the bank and ask if really they are investigating anything. So every time you feel pressured to give out some sort of personal information, and you are threatened that this is some sort of investigation, you're in some sort of trouble, I think you can take it, or at least if there is any real trouble, the real police will show up.
Yeah, join in person.
Yeah.
So, Nicholas, I just want to ask, in your personal, professional, or even experience in NCPC, any particular scam stories that you've received that you feel that the public should be aware of, or maybe digital banking transactions relating to government officials, anything of the like?
Well, there are tons, so we're limited by time. Since e-commerce is one of the top three scams, perhaps just talk a bit about that. It's a very typical e-commerce involves sales normally where the buyer and seller do not meet face to face, or just and things are transacted, and I think a lot of these scam cases are cases where the buyer has paid money and actually the goods has not been received. But also there have been cases where the victims could be sellers who did not receive payment after delivering the goods and services to scammers pretending to be buyers. And sometimes these scammers, they provide victims with fake screenshots as proof of payments. In fact, recently myself, I encountered this personally, where I paid money online to buy something and I did not receive the goods. The good thing was that it was on a reputable platform, so I actually contacted them after like a month, like, hey, my goods have not arrived, and they promptly processed my refund. So that's the e-commerce example. But perhaps the other example is the impersonation of banks, right? A victim will receive a SMS, usually unsolicited, from either overseas or local number, and they will warn victims that, oh, there's a possible unauthorized transaction on their bank account or their credit card, and ask them to click on certain links. And once they click, right, certain things start to happen. They provide their banking information to a fake URL or website, and then transactions are performed on their accounts. So these are some of the more recent examples, and I'm sure like both Victoria and Wilson have a lot to share in this aspect as well.
So, Nicholas, tapping into your experience on digital banking, I think we have a question here from a member of our audience. Now, he says, or he or she says, he prefers physical bank tokens for two-factor authentication over a mobile app token to actually lower concentration risk. He's just wondering, well, does actually having two-factor authentication away from his or her mobile device actually reduce the risk of a single point of compromise?
Well, first of all, I'm not a digital banking expert because we manage risk on the credit card. But two-factor authentication is a technical it's a tactic used for risk management. And actually, people don't realize when you say two-factor or three factors, it means that actually one factor is what you have, second factor is who you are, and third factor is what you know. And actually, it has to be two different factors. So if both factors are like, what you have, and both factors are what you have, or both factors are what you know, then that doesn't constitute two-factor in a sense. I don't really quite fully understand the question in terms of you're mentioning about concentration risk.
Does it actually make any difference, in your opinion, physical bank token and mobile app? Is it better to have both? Or I think nowadays, there's a shift towards just having a mobile app.
Maybe Wilson might also have opinion on this, but there was a period of time where there was a difference, where having a mobile app on a certain platform, or certain like Android, actually made it easier for you to. I've actually seen cases where victims, because they click on the link on Facebook, and then their phone was compromised, and transactions were made through their mobile app and all that. So unfortunately, but that loophole has been closed since last year. But I'm just saying that there was a time where there was exploits. I think it was what was it called? Side loading or something. yeah.
Side loading. So let's say last year, very high in scams is actually the malware scams. Yeah. So where they were actually part of e-commerce, then they will ask you to download a certain software. This certain software is just to facilitate the purchase of certain item. But actually, this malware software application is actually into your phone, and then they will access on all your data, and details into your bank, and then overnight they will make that. Now we have the 12 hours wait out period, right? So this is where overnight then your money disappear, because that's where they authenticate to say that they want to open maybe $100,000. The next moment they transfer out the $100,000 in the 12 hours later. So those are then. So now what the bank has already done for the applications is they make sure that you cannot install a side loading side load application. So once Play Protect is activated, there's no way that you can install a side load app. So when there's a malware present in your phone, you cannot make use of the application for the bank. So that's the mechanism they have built already.
So for members of the public, do they actually have to do anything extra to prevent this side loading, or it's already inbuilt in the banking apps these days?
Okay, the banking apps has already make sure that if you have malware present on your phone, you cannot be activated. So that is done already. So I think the other thing very important for the public to know is that you should not make any changes to your phone for your settings features. For example, allow remote control by another fellow that is somewhere else. For example, let's say the scammers ask you to allow remote control so they can help you in technical support, for example. You shouldn't allow that to happen. That is changing the phone settings. The other one is to not disable your Play Protect, Google Play Protect in that sense.
Okay, so Wilson, on this matter of back to government official impersonation scams, so what's your advice you have for members of the public out there?
Okay, Ken, I think I will just share a very important pointer. I think it's also on the screen now for everybody to see. Very importantly, remember that police officer will never ask you to do the following things over the phone or over text. One is we will never ask you to transfer the money to the police, bank accounts, or mobile number linked to bank accounts. The second point is to request for your banking, SingPass, or CPF related information. The third one is we will never ask you to click on links that link to bank websites. That is a no-no, okay? The last one is also we do not ask you to install apps outside of official app stores. Yeah. Also, the other point that I want to share with everybody is that since 1st July, the next slide that will show you that since 1st July 2024, government SMSs have been sent from a single sender ID that is all in small caps, gov.sg. So if you want to know more information about that, you can just visit the website at sms.gov.sg. There are some exceptions, but it's very limited to certain numbers.
So now, before we move on to the next slide, I just want to remind members of the public, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them on Pigeonhole. Now, on to the next slide. Scam Shield Suite. Now, I'm actually aware of this Scam Shield app. And on 27 September 2024, the Scam Shield Suite was actually launched. Now, what is this new Scam Shield Suite, and how is it actually different from the previous Scam Shield app? And what can it actually do to help me? So, Nicholas, could I trouble you to share more about Scam Shield Suite?
Yes, thank you for that. As scams grow more sophisticated, NCPC has collaborated with SPF and the Open Government Protocol, OGP, to launch a Scam Shield Suite, moving beyond just an app to a comprehensive suite of resources, right? So the 24/7 Scam Shield helpline, which we talked about, 1799, Scam Shield website, Scam Shield alert on WhatsApp and Telegram are now tools for the public to not just block scam calls and detect these scam SMSs as have been used for quite a while. Besides that, the app now allows the users to check if it's a scam. Suspicious messages or link you can upload, you can screenshot and submit, not just for your text or SMS, but also for emails and anything you can upload using the app. You can also stay updated on the latest scam trends via the Scam Shield alert. And of course, we've talked about the Scam Shield helpline 1799. Wilson, I don't know if you have anything that you would like to add.
Yeah, I think yes, the enhanced Scam Shield app, it really allows the public now really to be able to check. So all you have to do is, let's say maybe you have a WhatsApp scam message, or you do not know whether it's a scam message. All you have to do is to do a screenshot, and then you check with Scam Shield app. It will be able to tell you whether it's a spam, it's a scam, or most probably give you advice that please don't reply to this message also. Yeah, so I think that is very useful too. That's why I think just now Nicholas also said about the Scam Shield alert channel that for everybody to join, because this is where that every week, at least once or twice, we will be sharing all the tips and tricks that you can do, or rather the information you can have about the latest trending scams. So we do urge for everybody to join the NCPC, or rather the Scam Shield alert channel. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that this channel was actually so educational.
We put in a lot of effort to put in a lot of articles, a lot of videos, a lot of audios for everybody to listen and view.
So it's easy to understand, right?
Yes, of course. We try our best to facilitate in 4 languages as much as we can.
Wow.
Yeah, but usually it's in English, but we'll try more. Yeah.
It's really impressive. Now, aside from Scam Shield Suite, any other resources that you think the public should always be aware that they can use? Wilson?
Okay, I'll just share the 4. I think I shared one of those just now already. I just repeat again. Money lock is very important. So you have money lying in the bank, don't know what to do with it. Please lock it. Make sure that you lock it, or at least invest with the correct investment parties that is listed on MAS website. The other one that is a CSA, Cyber Security Agency of Singapore, has been promoting about this too. Last year, they have already released a list of antivirus apps. So this is very important for you to install on your handphone. So to make sure that you are protected against malware versus appware or whichever not. So it can actually help you to prevent you from getting all those things. You can actually visit the CSA website. I have listed on the screen now. So for the recommended apps that you can install. The third one is on the international call blocking. So actually INDA has worked with all the telcos. Now you can actually activate your international call blocking option through your telco, so that you will not receive international scammers calls, because whatever they can control in Singapore is within their reach. Whatever from outside, if you activate this international call blocking, you can actually cut away at least 50% of your calls that you don't receive from overseas. So contact your telcos and you can find out more about the details. I think one of the key features about this call blocking is that you can actually deactivate it when you go overseas. So you don't need to be afraid that it's activated, then you cannot contact probably your vendors or agents when you are overseas, or your tour guide overseas. Yeah, that's most important when everybody travels, right? So I think you can deactivate, then you can activate again when you're back in Singapore. So that is very useful. The last one is that we have put in a lot of effort together NCPC, together with different parties that we have, to put up an anti-scam resource guide. So this resource guide actually will be telling you about the basic information on the Act Check Tell that we have shared. Of course, into some of the things that how police investigate into cases, what are the things that you can expect for the scam cases, to how we respond to you, and how you can expect down the road. There are also quite a number of community information. Let's say you fall prey to scams already. What are the community help you can seek from for different numbers is also listed inside. So these are the 4 different other resources I have shared. Hopefully everybody can take a look at it.
Maybe if I can add also from NCPC, we are launching XTS, or we call it Siam the Scam hashtag. It's a game that we're launching on 24th October, so you definitely heard it here first. It's a web-based live simulation game that teaches users or players to recognize and avoid scams in a fun and interactive, engaging way. It's a bit of a different approach by NCPC and our partners and stakeholders to challenge participants to make informed decisions while balancing aspects of your life, like your health, your money, your relationships, and very much like real life. So you will learn and be reinforced on the ACT framework, which Wilson especially have highlighted a lot today, and to reinforce anti-scam knowledge. So to top it up, we've also worked with our partners to put up I think it says 55,000 in cash prizes and 3,000 gifts. That's in hope of getting more participation and all that. So you've definitely heard it here first.
I assume you guys know the solution to the game, but I want to know if Andrew and I can play.
Can play, but we can't.
Not a scam, right? The money.
Not a scam.
Now, okay, one thing from our audience here. So after having heard about Scam Shield, so this question came in. Can we actually report all the scam advertisements on Facebook on Scam Shield? Wilson?
Sure, you can. You can screenshot and then report to check whether it's a scam, right?
Hmm.
But if you want to report and to make sure that it will be taken down and stuff, it's best that you report to Facebook or social media or the messaging platforms that you receive it. So those are the avenues that you can remove it. Reporting the scam show is for information to check and stuff. So I think the primary thing is still lodge an official report if you have been scammed from that site, or if you have not been scammed but you realize that it's such a site, report to the social media directly.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Wilson. So now at this point, we have a bit of time. So let's consider some of the questions submitted by the members of our audience. As a reminder again to our audience, you can still submit questions through Pigeonhole. Now, our first question here actually relates to that mid-year report that Wilson, you earlier shared. Now, the question is pretty interesting. It's actually asking for your opinion. Do you think that actually reporting the number of scams that Singaporeans or Singapore residents actually fall prey to, actually announcing to scammers that our citizens are too gullible?
Not really. I think what the Singapore government as a whole per se is we want to be transparent in all our figures and numbers. The first thing is that we report to this is to alert the citizens, the Singaporeans, that these are the things that you have to look out for, especially all the messages and public education that we are sharing so you can protect yourself. They are in the dark. You hide the figures, they will somehow still continue to perpetrate their scams through mass sending all the messages or different platforms they will use. So you can't stop that, but what we can do as Singapore on our own is make sure that we report all the figures out truthfully, and we teach you what you can do to protect yourself against scams.
Okay. Now, talking about scams and all, just want to understand as well, just on the basis of what is actually a scam, right? Member of audience has actually asked, if they have unauthorized deductions from their bank account, which they have never subscribed to as a payment. These are overseas deductions. Are they actually scams, Victoria?
I think, of course, it would be quite difficult to say just based on those facts, but maybe the better question is not so much whether it's a scam or not, but whether you had authorized those deductions. So, we refer to scams very much as something where you've been cheated to do something. So you've signed up to something without knowing actually what you're signing up for. And if that was what had happened to you, then yes, I would consider that a scam. But at the same time, this could be some sort of outright misappropriation of your credit card. Someone could have hacked certain databases and obtained your credit card information. So that definitely would also be some form of fraud and deceit, but perhaps not a scam. To me, I think the labels really are not the most important part of that question. It's more about, did you or did you not authorize this charge to your credit card, right? And if you hadn't authorized that charge, then definitely you should be raising an issue with your bank, particularly if it's a recurring charge. So I mean, what I will say is that I signed up for a subscription to I think it was a magazine or something, and what was charged to my credit card in the end was a company that had nothing to do. The name of it had nothing to do with the magazine that I signed up for, and I ended up reporting that to my credit card company, not realizing that in fact it was something that I authorized, but nothing really came of it. I think in the end, the bank contacted the vendor. The vendor was like, no, she did sign up, and then on that reminder, I said sorry for the inconvenience. So I mean, I raised this purely to illustrate that even if you err on the side of over-reporting, things will get worked out, but it's better than you do that rather than keep paying money that you don't know what you're paying for.
All right, thank you. Now, Nicholas, one of the questions here is, well, they've noticed on Facebook, people making posts, they tend to like to add URLs. Would these URLs be considered scams? Because people sometimes when they read it, they just click it, where the comment just says, click on it, and they feel obliged to click on that link. By default, is it a scam if it doesn't relate to the post itself? What are your thoughts on it? Just
I think first of all, just clicking on any links these days, I have to like really personally, I would think twice, 3 times. We will ask, we will check with. I will ask, check, and tell, and I'll hover my, if I'm on the PC, I'll hover my mouse over and see where's that link going, and if whoever's asking me to click on that link, is it somebody that I know and trust and respect in the sense before I click on any link in the sense, because I've seen cases, unfortunately, where a lot of money was lost when the wrong links have been clicked. So I would say that as to Victoria's earlier point, whether it's a scam or not, I think the labeling may not be important as in the fact that you have to just be very careful on any links or URLs that you click on.
I think I'll just add here, yes, I think phishing scam is actually on the rise. So I think everybody just be very careful on when after you click on if you really click on the link, to find out, satisfy your curiosity to see what the link leads to, but make sure that you do not provide personal details, your banking details on the site, because that's where phishing scam starts. So, but of course, I think the primary thing is really must be very sure who is the content creator, who pass you the URL. Are you sure that it is saved first? Make all those checks before you go deeper into it.
so related to what you just shared about, malware and all, audience has asked, malware is through the phone. What about computers? Do scams only happen on handphones? Do we actually need to have a different platform for communication as a result? What are your thoughts, Wilson?
I think because we have been using handphones for almost everything, from your alarm clock to all your banking usage to all your schedules and stuff, I think we can't escape that we need to use the mobile phones just to be very safe that for using mobile phones, you must know all the digital measures that you have to put in for your banks, for your social media, for messaging, for privacy settings, and also to your bank phone settings to make sure that you get all this protected. So I think we will not shy away from using, because we are advancing into a smart nation, making sure that we are using the correct ways of doing it. But for websites too, I think one of the questions is mentioning that should we be careful about websites? I think yes, the recent months there was also technical support scams where you will receive a message on your when you are scrolling through your internet or viewing some Facebook or YouTube videos, there will be a message popping up and say that there's a malware and on your laptop or your desktop. Call this number to contact the help desk so that we can remove the malware for you. So those are actually not official numbers, but of course we have victims that fall prey to those. They will call the number, then they will teach them what to do. For example, maybe remote control their laptops in order to remove the malware per se, but actually it's not. They're just accessing to make sure to know all your banking details and stuff and phishing the details out from you. So I think everybody must be very put in all your protections for both your mobile phone and your desktop devices or laptops so that you can prevent yourself from falling prey to scams.
I see.
Yes, if I add that, I think knowledge and understanding of malware on mobile phones is not as matured as it is on PCs and laptops. And Wilson will notice as well that we talked about the side loading issue, and that was on introduction of malware through opening up of this side loading capability. And actually, some of these jurisdictions in Europe, they are now trying to force or regulate to say that actually phone companies have to allow for side loading to allow for more competition from the industry, but they may, in introducing that legislation, they may not realize that actually then it allows for more malware to enter. So my point is that in the sense, understanding of malware on mobile devices is still there's still a lot of areas to grow.
I see. So take note, it's not just mobile phones. Here's a question. Is it actually very difficult to catch a scam syndicate? Victoria, your views?
I appreciate that I'm not the police officer on this panel, but in my opinion, the short answer is yes. to me, in my experience working in AGC and also with the kind of work that I now do, which is very much fraud and asset recovery, the biggest difficulty in catching a scam syndicate, there are two. Number one is anonymity and layers. The fact that this syndicate is amorphous, you don't know who's running it. There's so many people involved. They layer that participation through so many mules so that it's so hard to catch the kingpin and really dismantle it. The second difficulty is that very often these syndicates are based in perhaps countries with a less robust kind of rule of law. And that's outside of Singapore, outside of perhaps Singapore's people or other countries that Singapore police or Singapore authorities can cooperate with as effectively. And, it's really up to that country to be able to police what goes on within that country's boundaries. Of course, if the scam syndicate has all the local militia and all the local police on their payroll, then we can more or less give up hope of them being caught by their local authorities. So it is a very thorny issue and it is a very entrenched problem. But the short answer is that yes, unfortunately, rather than perhaps attempt the impossible and go after the scam syndicates, although I'm sure the police do try their best too, we should also play our parts and be vigilant against their efforts.
Wilson?
Okay, let me share a little bit on our efforts for police force here. So I think yes, it's definitely difficult to break down a scam syndicate like Victoria has shared is usually overseas. So what we do, our anti-scam center, our different parties and in the CID, and so we are working very closely with different foreign police agencies to see how we can quickly get the information, or rather we know that the bank account has been transferred, for example, to an X country. We will quickly tie up with the country officials and see how we can get them to cooperate with us to make sure that we can bring that syndicate, or rather at least there are knots in the different points of the world as quickly as possible. This is definitely not easy, it's challenging. But that's why annually, or rather half yearly, we have always been working with different agencies through different platforms like sharing on how we can collaborate further to make sure that we can share information faster and help each other to arrest. You will be surprised that there might be some syndicates in Singapore too, where they are probably tricking another country that's overseas. So that's how they operate in a way. They will not operate in that certain country that they are doing the scams. They will actually in the neighboring or the countries away from here. Yeah, so that's why international cooperation is very important. And we are trying our best to make sure that helps us in our anti-scam efforts.
Thanks, Wilson. That's really reassuring. Now, we are sadly out of time. Now, before we end the session, I would actually like to invite each of our speakers to leave us with just one key takeaway from today's session. Victoria, could you get the ball rolling?
The takeaway I would propose is prevention really, really is better than cure. While we have in some cases and with some luck helped some scam victims recover their funds or their assets, the road to recovery is a very long drawn and stressful one. And it is far better to never have to even go down it.
Wilson?
Okay, I'll go into the check pointers. I have a slide there too. Call 1799 to check with Scam Shield helpline. It's available 24/7. The second point is check with Scam Shield app by submitting the screenshots of the suspicious text message, phone number, or links received via the app. The third one, always check with a trusted one or your loved ones before proceeding to do anything else. Yeah.
And lastly, Nicholas, what do you have to share?
Yes, as we continue to build and try to innovate on these tools and resources that we put out, we need everyone to stay vigilant, alert, actively engage with the tools like a Scam Shield suite or even XTS, Scam the Scam, to protect yourselves and your loved ones. NCPC, we remain committed to driving these initiatives, but we also need a whole of society approach. Everyone needs to work together and look out for one another to truly protect your loved ones from being victims of scams.
Thanks, Nicholas. Now, We have to bring today's session to a close. If you found this webinar beneficial and would like to share it with your family or friend, the recording of this webinar will be made available on Pro Bono SG's YouTube channel in 2 weeks' time. The link will be dropped into the chat. Now, next Monday, at the same time of 7:30 p.m., we have a webinar, Advanced Legal Planning Civil. Are you planning for your later years, but unsure where to start? Concerned about what happens after the demise of a loved one? It's never too late, never too early to plan ahead for the future. And the most precious gift you can leave your family is peace of mind. Imagine having the confidence that your loved ones will be taken care of and your wishes will be respected, no matter what the future holds. Now join our moderator, Ms. Catherine Yong, and speakers, lawyer Peggy Sarah Yee, medical professional Dr. Adeline Lam, and social worker Julia Lee, as they share essential legal tools and strategies to ensure your family is supported and your desires are honored even after you are gone. Gain valuable insights into wills, trusts, advanced care planning, and more, equipping you with the knowledge to provide your loved ones with lasting peace of mind. Don't miss this opportunity to secure your future and protect what matters most. These and many more webinars are part of Law Awareness Weeks at CDC 2024. You can visit the website go.gov.sg/law-cdc or the event page on Pro Bono SG website or Law Go Where to register for this webinar or the many more webinars available. The links will be dropped into the chat function. Now, at the end of this webinar, a survey form will pop up on your screen for your completion. We appreciate your comments as it would be used to improve future webinars. Lastly, after today's fantastic sharing from our panelists and find that you require legal guidance on your legal issue, do write to help@probono.sg. Now, at this juncture, we would like to express our gratitude to Victoria, Wilson, and Nicholas for sharing your knowledge and experiences with us. With that, on behalf of Pro Bono SG, we would like to thank all of you for joining us today and have a good week ahead.